£2.50 is the inclusive price for a full day of fun at Lightwater Valley, with all games and rides free. You'll love the value, the kids will love the action, with as many goes as they like. Lightwater Valley, near Ripon, a great family day out. Fantastic value at £2.50, with all games and rides free.
Hello everyone and welcome to Adventures in Airtime. My name is Ewan and today I'm going to be taking you through the history of Lightwater Valley. Now, Lightwater Valley is a small theme park situated in Ripon, North Yorkshire, but the site dates back to 1516 when Cardinal Wolsey handed the plot of land to the Steveley family, who would then own it for the next several hundred years. In fact, we're going to jump forward in time quite quickly to 1969, when the family opened the site as a pick-your-own fruit destination. They would grow several crops and people would attend to pick their own fruit. It was very successful, but unfortunately in 1976 there was a severe drought which ruined the strawberry crop and therefore jeopardised the family's only income. They decided that after the bad crop they would excavate a lake in the centre of the site to try and prevent further drought. The lake became really popular, and people would come from far and wide to relax by the lake as well as picking their own fruit. The family decided that they would begin investing in entertainment for their visitors, and thus the transition from fruit picking destination to theme park began. Several attractions were added early on in the park's history. An adventure play area was one of the first. This play area would later be renamed as Fort William and is one of the recognisable features of the park for kids in the 80s and the early 90s that weren't such a fan of getting on big roller coasters. Canoes, rowing boats and even a circus were the next attractions to be added, followed by some slightly more unusual choices for a theme park, including BMX bikes, pedal carts and a petting zoo. By the end of the 1984 season, the park was becoming busier and the Steveley family was searching for new ways to keep their guests entertained. They were growing, but not quite at the level of other visitor attractions of similar theme, so they decided to go in-house for their next investment, one which even today still makes ride geeks and enthusiasts scratch their heads. Now, before you get too excited, it's not quite time to talk about the ultimate, even though that also makes us scratch our heads. It's time for the construction of the infamous Skip on Wheels. That's right, the Devil's Cascade. And later it was known as Toad Hole. Now, if you weren't lucky enough to experience this bizarre creation, then here's all you need to know. It was dark, it was damp, and it had a splashdown which strongly advised against consuming or even coming into contact with the water. Tasty. That's right, folks, a water ride with a warning against coming into contact with the water. Devil's Cascade paved the way for the future of the park, and by 1987 things were starting to move away from the humble fruit-picking farm, and the arrival of the park's first roller coaster got fans excited. Up until this point, most of the attractions at Lightwater Valley had been temporary looking, with fairground rides being added to increase the park's offering. But this coaster was the first to have a deeper level of theming, and some clear thought had been put into the design. However, it wasn't necessarily what everyone in the Steveley family wanted. Robert, who was in charge at the time, had pitched the idea to his wife, who at this point, you need to know, was a big fan of keeping the place a country park rather than a fully fledged theme park. And she was also keen on protecting its natural beauty. The thought of an ugly coaster on the countryside was not what she had in mind. Nevertheless, she made a deal. She told him she could build his coaster as long as it was out of sight. The Sewer Rat opened in 1987, to great applause from guests, young, old and enthusiasts. And, despite being a standard Schwarzkopf Wildcat-style coaster. The placing of it inside a building led to an almost pitch-black ride experience. Fantastic underground brick tunnels were constructed to create a creepy sewer vibe for guests to walk through on their way to the coaster, which, although feeling underground, was merely in a warehouse-style building covered under a mound of earth. The construction and opening of the sewer rat doubled gate figures and began to propel Lightwater Valley into success. Not only had the park seen its first coaster, but a permanent shopping village had been constructed alongside the park during the 87 season. That's all I'm going to say about the shopping village, because I don't like it, but don't tell anyone. Anyway, over the coming seasons, the park would continue to add more rides, including the Super Looper roller coaster in 1988, which featured 2 loops and backward-facing cars. 1990 saw the addition of one of the most stunning Zamperla pirate ships ever built. Situated above a waterfall in a small nook of the park, it gave a great amount of airtime and was extra scary due to the height of the land it was sat on. 1990 was also the year that work began on the biggest project the family had ever undertaken, the Ultimate. The Ultimate's construction was as rough as the ride itself, with several companies and manufacturers getting involved, some of which were even pushed into bankruptcy due to spiralling construction costs and long delays. Even British Rail got involved to help oversee some of the construction. After 18 months of hard work and a whopping £5.2 million, the Ultimate was opened to the public by Frank Bruno. Unbeknownst to Robert Staveley, he'd just broken the world record for the world's longest roller coaster.
There we go.
The Ultimate began drawing in the crowds, but unfortunately it wasn't enough, and by the mid-90s the park was struggling heavily due to financial commitments to the original construction costs of the Ultimate. Robert had handed the park down to his children, Amanda and James, who worked hard trying to invest further into the park, adding a unique suspended coaster known as the Batflyer, the classic children's coaster, the Ladybird, and the huge dinghy water slide known as Falls of Terror. They added other small attractions too, but by 1997 the park was really struggling and was sold for a measly £5.2 million to Queensborough Holdings, who kept the park for just 11 months before putting it back up for sale. However, with no takers, Queensborough Holdings were forced to keep the park until 2011, when it was bought by Ball Investments, which led to the park being managed by Heritage Great Britain. At this point, the park was radically changed, and rides were being moved out, rethemed, and added. The park itself was rebranded with new mascots and logos, leading to a fresh feel. Treetop Twister and Black Widow's Web were 2 of the first new additions, but the excitement was short-lived, as on June the 20th, 2001, 2 Treetop Twister cars collided, causing fatal injuries to 20-year-old Gemma Savage, who sadly passed away the following day. This was a major setback for the park, but in adversity, they continued to invest and create a bigger, better park for the whole family. Rides continued to be added season after season, with 2003 seeing the addition of the Caterpillar coaster, 2004 the Grizzly Bear, another roller coaster made by Pimfari, 2005 saw the Octopus, 2006 the Hornet's Nest, which was rarely operational due to technical difficulties. In 2009, the Sewer Rat received a welcome retheme to Raptor Attack, which was the first real theming project the park had undertaken in years, due to most of the recent ride investments merely being temporary fillers, or on short leases, which, although meant Lightwater Valley's ride lineup was ever changing, did give the park less of a theme park feel and more of a fun fair. 2010 saw more theming introduced, with the arrival of Skeleton Cove, the first ever fully themed area in the park. It also featured a seasonal show and a whole host of new attractions which fit the area. It's at this time that Lightwater Valley also began to experiment with a Halloween event, and with firework extravaganza. Things had certainly started looking up for the park. 2013 brought big changes to Lightwater Valley as they teamed up with the popular mobile gaming app Angry Birds, which saw a 30,000 square foot interactive play area installed, bringing visitors from far and wide to play. Now unfortunately, this is where the park seems to hit a bit of a wall, as far as new attractions and rides go, and over the next 3 seasons, the park has gained only one distinguishable attraction, a starflyer known as Apollo. This being said, the outside of the park did receive a brand new £350,000 Jurassic theme mini golf course, and a high ropes course featuring slides and nets and giant trampolines, all set in the trees. But still, it's definitely time that Lightwater Valley went big and started really investing back into the park. Hopefully, with a new investor and a keen team running the show, we can hope that we won't see it falling apart like so many smaller parks over the last few years, and it will start to grow again so that generations to come can experience the quirky charm of Lightwater Valley. Now we know we've not been able to touch on every piece of history to do with Lightwater Valley today, and we've not mentioned every ride that's been installed, but we've touched on the main things. And if you've enjoyed our video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more useful theme park videos and funny adventures that we go on. Thanks guys, bye!